It's time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online for all your website needs at sonicwebstudios.com. The Mike Wagner Show brings you interesting people doing interesting things all across the globe. Now, let's get started on the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. I'm with you here on the Mike Wagner Show, and we are here. We're here with Harry Lang, the actor, director of many, many films. He's been doing this since as a teenager. He's been in many films like 8 Men Out, Alligator, also Sunshine State, and he's also been in a number of films, which I am trying to keep track right here. But he just came off a recent project called An Interview with God. It had rave reviews, and it's been very thought-provoking. It was in theaters back in August. We were going to go on and talk about that before release. However, Harry Lang had to go to Atlanta, just to fill in. But right now, here to talk about his great career, here is actor and director and producer of everything, Harry Lang. Harry, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us here.
Hey, Mike. Great to talk to you.
Oh, you too? Thank you. So you have the movie An Interview with God, and of course, it had great reviews and very thought-provoking. But first, before we talk about the movie, you had to head down to Atlanta and do a little emergency visit. So you can just tell us all about that. First of all, that's been one of your later projects before the Interview with God.
Well, yeah, but what happened there was there was a production and a director. Actually, he got a vertigo, not anything connected to Hitchcock, but he got vertigo, and he recovered. And I just basically got paid to sit there for 2 weeks and hang out and make sure that he could stand upright, which he did great, and he did well on the picture, and I was the backup, so I was on the bench, and nothing could make me happier than to sit there and eat craft service and not work. So I know it sounds crazy, but I was happy to let the director make his movie, and I didn't have to work, but it was fun to be there.
And of course, speaking of being on the bench, you directed 8 Men Out, which is the legendary baseball movie, and of course it involved the famous Black Sox scandal. So tell us all about that project.
Oh, Mike, I only acted in it. I played one of the 8 Men Out in 8 Men Out, but I didn't direct it. I acted in it only, and the great John Sayles wrote it and directed it. So that was actually just before I started directing, and it was great to watch John Sayles work and work with that great cast. And I've done 5 movies with John Sayles, and he later went on to act in my movies, and I've acted in his. I directed a movie he wrote. So Sayles and I have had a lot of collaborations, and that's been great.
Okay, that is great, too. We'll get to that in just a second. And, of course, An Interview with God, and, of course, again, had rave reviews. And, we've seen the trailer. It's very thought-provoking. And, first of all, how'd you get yourself involved in that project? And just walk us through the process.
Well, most movies have these long, drawn-out years and years of, trying to get it made, and long, stories about how it failed before it got started. This one doesn't have that. I was sent the script by a friend who's a producer, and at 57 years old, he wrote a script, and he said, would you read it? And I thought, really, gosh, somebody's first script that they write in their 50s, how good could it be? So I actually even printed it out, because I thought, the chances are very slim that it's going to be readable. And as soon as I read the first page, I knew this was something really interesting. And and I read it all in one sitting. I called him back and I said, "Yeah, it's a really good script, and I want to direct it." And he wasn't even giving it to me for that express reason. He just wanted notes on the script, and I said, "Yeah, we should make this." And I sent it to David Strathairn, and David called me back a couple hours later and said, "Okay, great, let's do it." And financing came in not long after, and 6 months later we were in production.
That is fantastic. And of course, you had David Strathairn. You also had quite a few nobles, and you can also tell us what experience they've had so they could be more familiar with the film if it comes out again or on DVD or on limited release once again.
Yeah, I mean, David Strathairn, he was actually in Eight Men Out as well. We were two of the 8 men in 8 Men Out, but he's an old friend, and we talk all the time. So that was an easy connection. But the real actual, uh, film is told through this character Paul, played by Brenton Thwaites, and Brenton is a terrific actor, really a great guy and a great actor. He was in that last Pirates of the Caribbean movie playing Orlando Bloom's son. He's been in The Giver and just a bunch of big movies that haven't done particularly well, but his work in them has been great. And when I met him, I thought, this is the guy I want. And he was such a great, hardworking, focused actor. He's Australian, but has a terrific American accent. And I can't really say enough about him. So it was really told through his eyes, and he meets this man who says he's God, and they set up to have 3 meetings, and it's really the story of these meetings and where Paul is. He plays a journalist that just got back from Afghanistan. His marriage is going sideways. He's been asked to take some time at work because he's acting a little erratically, and yet he takes this interview with the man, and it's sort of what happens at that point.
We'll be back with more after this on The Mike Wagner Show. Hey everyone, it's Mike Wagner from The Mike Wagner Show. If you like what we play, if you love great guests, and enjoy lots of fun, then how'd you like to be a sponsor of my show? We're looking for businesses to be part of the great show and a great way to let people know about what you do. If you're a singer, writer, actor, author, or an interesting person with a great product and looking for exposure, you've come to the right place. Call me or text at 701-301-7705 or email to mike@themikewagnershow.com and I'll get you set up with the right sponsor package. Don't delay. Do it today. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blows the competition away. Call today at 800-303-3960 or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Now, back to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by sonicwebstudios.com. And of course, too, it talks about Christianity as well, too. And, of course, after the views, how much feedback did you get, if how many people have come to Christ, or if there's any questions about the film or anything? What general feedback have you gotten after the showing of the film?
Well, it's funny because I was talking to the producer the other day, and he turned to me and said, "Listen, have you heard anything negative about the film?" And I said, "No, but there probably, I'm sure there's negative stuff out there." Because look, I was thinking the same thing. I'm the producer of the film. Maybe there's some negative stuff out there. I've actually heard nothing negative, which is almost frightening. I know a lot of people, when they saw the trailer, they had questions about it. But the interesting thing about the the dynamic between the two aspects of the film is that it's how our will works in relationship to God's will, and how that is not in conflict. It actually works together, and that's a message that people have really taken to, and I sort of thought, an Episcopalian, so I sort of thought, well, this was a very liberal interpretation of God's will. But what I found is that even very strict, hardcore evangelicals have adopted the film as well, and it's funny. It could be a very polarizing issue, I suppose, but people have found it to be very unifying, and very much a way to get a conversation started. So here I thought I was making a very sort of liberal type Christian film, and Fox News took it up and did a whole panel show dedicated to the movie, and without any advertising at all, it became a really big success in theaters. It broke all records for Fathom, and we're trying to find more days so it could be out and release again. But it was a huge success, and now you can track these things very easily using Google Analytics, and it really, across the U.S., a lot of some films play well in the Midwest. Some films play well in New York or L.A. This film played universally across the board really well, and that was a complete surprise to me. I had no idea that the film would be so successful in so many different pockets of the U.S.
And growing up Episcopalian as well, too, from your experience, do you feel you've come closer to God after directing this film, or do you feel like it's more of a learning curve, or how much have you grown from this experience?
Well, I think it goes back to this last idea that there's more that unifies us than separates us. I think that people are always focused on the divisions in Christianity and the divisions between religions. But I think if you really look at it, there's more that unites us than separates us. And I think that when you look at another religion, it's not like looking at another football team, there's so much that we have in common. I mean, in religions, it's about, yes, it's about love of God, but it's also about how we help our community, how we lift up people that have less than, and how we support the poor and disenfranchised, and that's in all religion. So that's been the big thing for me. I was worried at the very beginning, because you think, where are the critics going to come from, and I think that what surprised me more than anything else is that they haven't come. That this message of love and unification is really the overwhelming sound that I'm hearing.
That is truly amazing, and of course, it's been one of the biggest things out there too. We're very happy for on that one. Now, in terms of directing, do you consider this to be your biggest and most challenging project, or what was considered at the time your most challenging in your years of directing, or what's your second most challenging?
Well, I think that this film was challenging in that we had a very short production schedule, and we were shooting in New York City, which can be challenging in itself. But the look that this New York City gave us was so wonderful and complex and diverse, and and layered that I'm very happy. Originally, the producers thought about shooting in Atlanta, which is a great place, but we went to the unions in Atlanta, and they were saying, well, you don't have the money to shoot this film there, and we ended up in New York City, but we had to do it on a sort of a quick schedule, which was fine. I've worked a lot in television, so I think that the big challenge for this movie was the schedule, and and figuring out how to shoot these very long scenes between these two guys as they go at it, and uh, and how to shoot their. I don't know if it means anything, but these scenes are 25 pages. So when you they're 25 pages a piece. So when you make a movie, you're shooting scenes that are maybe 2 or 3 pages. Sometimes they're 5 and 6 pages. A 6-page scene is a really long scene. I think before this, maybe the longest scene I've ever shot was 10 pages. And now these scenes were 25 pages. So now you have 2 actors, and you want to keep it interesting. And it was interesting when you read it, but is it going to be interesting visually? And I also didn't want to shoot the scenes where I had to keep stopping the actors. So you would get halfway through the scene and then stop them and move the camera, and stop them and move the camera, and stop them and move the camera. Typically in a movie, you'll have, in 25 pages, you'll have hundreds of camera setups. Just you'll move the camera hundreds of times. In this particular instance, we really kept the camera in the same place. We had probably 6 or 7 setups in the 25 pages, but we ran the scene all the way through during these 25 pages. So the actors were really acting through this long sequence and not stopping. That was the one thing I really wanted them to do, was to not stop, not have to be held up by the limitations of film, which are usually you say a word, you move the camera, you say 5 words, you move the camera, you walk down a hallway, you move the camera, so it's this is what I wanted to free the actors up from. I wanted them to be able to work unimpeded for 25 pages and just go. And to see these 2 actors, who are terrific, by the way, they're both, just, great at their craft, go full out. It's like watching a wonderful horse run. It's really enlightening and really inspiring. And I think we did each of the scenes 3 times from each camera angle. So it was challenging, but once we worked it out, once we got the equation to make sense, and we followed the guidelines that we set up in terms of filmmaking, then it was just fun to watch.
And what would you consider your most memorable moment filming the an interview with God? What's your most memorable moment?
I think that it was in the 3 scenes. There's a scene in in an old movie theater, and it's a great grand movie palace from the old days in Brooklyn. And I had set up a dynamic between the 2 actors where the man, God, says to Paul, he says, well, you're about out of time. And we set it up that it would hit one character one way and the other character the other way. And I won't say which, you'll have to see it. But the actors, when we went back over the scene again, they decided to reverse their intentions. So they traded intentions, and you'll understand that when you see it. But it was, again, just so wonderful to be able to sit there and watch these two great actors play this moment that they had sort of conspired amongst themselves doing. Um, and again, to me, that was the most wonderful moment, and it had nothing to do with me. I just I set the plate, and they brought it. They brought the dinner, and that was it's one of the great things about film directing is that you sort of make an area supported and safe and secure for all the people involved, and to see what they bring is sometimes astounding. And I'm often surprised when people will call themselves auteur, when I think there are novelists out there who are auteurs, but when you make a movie, you make it with 100 other people, and it's really how you play with others that counts. I mean, you may be the director, but they're bringing a lot of their soul to the project, and if I have a job at all, it's to encourage them to trust and to go deep and to bring something substantial to the table.
We'll be back with more after this on The Mike Wagner Show. Hey everyone, it's Mike Wagner from The Mike Wagner Show. If you like what we play, if you love great guests, and enjoy lots of fun, then how'd you like to be a sponsor of my show? We're looking for businesses to be part of the great show and a great way to let people know about what you do. If you're a singer, writer, actor, author, or an interesting person with a great product and looking for exposure, you've come to the right place. Call me or text at 701-301-7705 or email to mike@themikewagnershow.com and I'll get you set up with the right sponsor package. Don't delay. Do it today. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blows the competition away. Call today at 800-303-3960 or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Now, back to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by sonicwebstudios.com. That is amazing, too. And who'd you consider be the most influential director that you've ever been with, the biggest influence?
Well, I think probably Steven Spielberg. I spent 7 months working with Spielberg on a movie called 1941, and I was 19, started the movie when I was 19, and I finished it when I was 20, and just spending 7 months with Steven Spielberg was an education. And at the time, I never thought I could direct or would direct, or it was never really anything on my radar. Although weirdly, I was shooting a lot of 8mm film on the set at the time. It just didn't occur to me that I could be a director, and so I didn't look at Steven as a mentor, really, because I was going to direct. I just looked at him as somebody really interesting, and looked at his process, and that was so fun. I watched dailies with him. He gave me an 8mm camera and lots of film to shoot, and that footage ended up in the DVD extras for the movie, and so I wasn't aware even of what I was learning at the time, but now I look back at it, and Steven was a huge influence on me.
And of course, you also mentioned John Sayles as well, too. So describe your relationship with him, working with John Sayles.
Well, John, yeah, I mean, I think when I started working with John, I wanted to direct and knew I was going to direct. And John gave me, invaluable um, advice in terms of directing. Just, basic like tools of the trade. Say, for instance, right before you go to camera on a film, you're doing pre-production, and 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 all film happens really in pre-production. It's it's not something that you just show up on the day of production. So everything is planned and planned again, and in the last phase of pre-production, he suggests to go through the script and cut out every piece of dialogue that you can show and not say. So anything that you can show physically, just visually, just as pure cinema, do it that way and not talk about it. And I thought, that's just, a great piece of advice for any director. And I've taught directing, and it's a piece of advice I always give. But that and again, I've learned from Sales and Spielberg and Adrian Lyne, and it's more just their ability to encourage you to do your best work. That's this universal thing where there's somebody there behind the camera that is encouraging you to be great, and not criticizing you, but giving you permission to go deep and to be to do your best work without fear. It's just very interesting, because a lot of times when you see a director portrayed in a movie or a TV show or something, they're this angry, bitter, sort of disturbed individual, when I think that the best directors are really enlightened beings that are able to look at you and give you the gift of freedom.
That's a very good point too. And also, when you talk about bringing the best out of the actors and actresses, who would you say the best actors or actresses you've ever worked with?
Oh, that's a good question. I worked with a lot of really great ones. One strange experience. When I say that, I maybe the best time I ever had acting in anything was in a job I never got. I was screen testing for a movie called The Escape Artist, and I had to test with Raul Julia, and again, nobody. I didn't get the job, so they saw the footage and decided that I wasn't right for the movie. But it was Raul Julia and I doing these scenes, and literally we would do it with him crying and me laughing, and then him laughing and me crying, and we just kept switching it up, and so it's funny. I often think, when somebody asks me that question, my gut always goes to this moment with Raul Julia, and I think 3 people saw the test, 10 people, who knows? But again, I look back at that and I go, but I've worked with some really great actors, and it's not always the famous ones, although you work with a Mary Louise Parker or John Belushi or David Strathairn, and people that have just are just unique, or they know their craft so well that it's just you feel so fortunate to have a seat right next to the camera. And the first thing that these people do when they look up from a take is they look at you and go, well, what did you think? And that's such a great place to be. Oh my gosh, it just, it goes on. Catherine O'Hara, people that are sort of, I'm missing a million great actors, but people that are just so steeped in their craft. And the British, say that an actor doesn't really get to be an actor till he's over 40, and or they used to say that, but I don't know if they do today. But you work with older actors like Sir John Mills and Lee Marvin. Oh my gosh, I had some great scenes with Lee Marvin in a movie called The Big Red One, and you work with an actor like Lee Marvin, and it's just seared into your soul, that sort of depth and connection to character, and that this giving quality that he has in his work, and it's so seamless. You are in that moment with this actor. You are your character, and he is his character, and you can look back at it, but in that moment you are those people, and you look back at it and go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And Lee Marvin, may be the greatest in that regard.
Yeah, it sounds like you work with a really distinguished group, and of course, before we let you go here, we're just about running out of time. Tell us about your upcoming project and what's your website in case I want to look at more information on you.
Oh my gosh, Mike. Do I have a website? I don't. I weirdly enough, I want to make a movie in India. I've written a movie about a 13-year-old detective who's a young woman in India, and so I'm just in the very early stages of getting that together, but it looks good. People love the script, and it's really interesting, really fun, and really engaging. So I'm off to India, and if I make it back, I'll call you.
That would be greatly appreciated. And what is the target date, and who's going to be starring in this film?
Well, nobody that you've ever heard of, except that I'm hoping that Brenton Thwaites gets a small part in it, but I'm going to have to plead with him for that. So don't tell anybody before I get the chance to talk to him.
I won't.
Okay, keep it very, very, very quiet. But it's again, this is a labor of love, but I think it's a very meaningful movie. And the target date would be we would start scouting pretty soon, because monsoons are over, and I'd like to do as much work as we can during the cool weather.
That would be a great idea, and keep us up to date. And also, once again, just tell everybody about the movie and Interview with God. What is the website?
It's an interviewwithgod.com, and interviewwithgod.com, and look at the trailer. I think if you like that, you'll love the movie, and I would love to hear from people's just in terms of if they got a chance to sit down with God, what would they ask? What would you say to this person who you think is the Almighty, but and what would that person be like? So what would you ask? I think it's a big question.
I think that's very thought-provoking. And once again, when is the target re-release date for the movie?
Right now, we're trying to get more dates in the theater, but if not, it will come out on digital in November.
That'll be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. And Perry, thank you very much. It's great talking to you, and keep us up to date with your projects as well. I look forward to talking with you again.
Great. Thanks, Mike, and great questions. I really, it was terrific to talk to somebody that asked such great questions. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios at themikewagnershow.com. Visit sonicwebstudios.com today for all your web design needs. If you would like to be a sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, call or text at 701-301-7705 or email to mike@themikewagnershow.com. If you're a listener and would like to support our program, visit themikewagnershow.com and click on the support button and donate today. Thanks for listening, and tune in again next time on The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com.